Good morning, my name's Glyn and I'm here to talk to you about Microsoft Excel. I'm from JJ Systems and you can probably see the shirt if I sit a bit straighter. Like I say, this will be about half an hour. It won't be much longer because I know you're all busy anyway. But if you've got any questions at any point, or even if there's anything you particularly want to see in Excel, now would be an excellent time to ask. Or at any time through, just yell and let me know. What I intend to do first of all is just start off with some really simple stuff, just so the people that are either really inexperienced of Excel or just don't use Excel, I've got a kind of a starting point. But if you're sitting there thinking, well, this is boring, I want to know about pivot tables and nested if statements, then let me know and I can pick up the pace or I can skip the easier sections. Basically, I just do what I'm told. So, so there we go. Right. Okay, so I'm going to start with autofill. So if everyone's ready, I'll begin. All ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to put do not disturb on my phone as well because that's how daring I'm feeling.
Oh God, I don't have to do that.
Okay.
I've already turned my wireless off, so this is the only thing attached to the internet. I'm going to get every last little bit of bandwidth out of it. Okay, here we go. So this is Microsoft Excel, which hopefully is very familiar to you all. Like I say, what we do first of all is autofill. Now, autofill is a thing that allows you to click on a cell, like this one, for example, type in something like a month name, and then drag it across like that. Is that something you're familiar with?
No.
No? Good. No. At least one person's going to see something new here then. Okay.
Yeah.
What we've got here is a month name. If I hover around the edge of that, anywhere around the edge at all, I get a little pointer with a crosshair. And then if I click and drag, that will move that item. However, if I hover over the little blob in the bottom right-hand corner, that's the fill handle. And what that'll do is it'll give me a slightly different crosshair. Then if I drag to the right, it'll continue that series of data. And you'll see as I drag it, that a little highlight below shows how far I've got. So if I've gone too far, I can move it back. But if I drag all the way as far as I want it and then let go, it continues that series of data. If I drag to the right, it continues it. If I hover on it, drag it down, it continues it. If I drag to the left, it goes backwards through the series of data. If I drag up, it goes backwards through the series of data. And if I drag diagonally, it does nothing because that's but it works with month names, it works with abbreviated month names, it works with days of the week, it works with abbreviated days of the week, it works with anything that's got a number next to it. So if I put area 1 there, or quarter 1 there, I can select those, autofill down, it'll continue that series. And if I put a date in there, we can continue that series as well. So if I click on that, drag it down, it'll give me the next one in the series. Now, sometimes you don't want the series to just be the next one along. So for example, with dates, if I wanted it the first of each month, rather than the next date along, what I can do is I can put in one date, then put in another one. So let's say the 1st of June. And if I select both of those, then autofill down, it'll give me the 1st of each month. Or, for example, if I wanted it to be once a week, I could have the 1st of May followed by, let's say, the 8th. And if I select both of those, I can click on it, and drag down, and it will give me the the next one in the series. And it works like that pretty much anything. So, if I want the first month in each quarter, I could type in Jan, April. I could select those, autofill them down. I get the first month in each quarter. If I wanted every other day, I could do mum, wed, select those, autofill down, etc., etc. There's a few other things you can do with it. You can also use it for text labels. So if I just get rid of all of this lot, get some space on there. If I type in some office names, fashion capitals of the world, as you can see. Now, if I wanted to put in all the details of like, I don't know, heating costs and then rates and then rent or something, rather than having to copy and paste this down the page, what I could do is I could just select the labels. I can just auto-fill it down and it will repeat it as many times as I like. Now, if I'm creating a spreadsheet or if I'm working on spreadsheets on a regular basis, where it seems like every time I create the spreadsheet, I'm always putting the same 14 different cost centers in or putting the same 10 members of staff's names in there, rather than copying and pasting it every time that I want to get those same details or typing it every time, what I can do is I can set that in the system, and this will stay in your profile for your copy of Excel and work every time you go into a spreadsheet. And the way we do this is we go to File, Options, and Advanced. It's really easy to find. So Files, Options, Advanced. Then you scroll all the way to the bottom. And then in the middle of the screen, we've got Edit Custom Lists. Now, I couldn't make it any simpler, or at least not recently. And so here we've got the pre-existing custom lists. To add new ones, all I need to do is click on Add and then type in the list that I want. So if I go for the same thing again with New York.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks.
And Margate. And then click on Add again. That now adds that into the system. Now that's in there forever. So like I say, that could be the same 10 cost centers that you always use, or 20 members of staff, or or whatever things you regularly use in a spreadsheet. And so if I say okay to that now, and okay to this, then whatever spreadsheet I'm working on, next time I type in any of those things, like Paris, all I've got to do is click on it, hover over the little blob in the bottom right hand corner, click and drag, and I can auto fill that down. Or I can also fill it across if it's heading across the top that I want. And it can be a little bit of a time saver, and it's a useful feature. And again, if I want to add more to it, or if I want to get rid of this one, all I do is go to File, Options, Advanced, scroll to the bottom, and click on Edit Custom Lists. Easy, huh? How could you not know that? Actually, have a problem finding that. And then at this point, if I want to get rid of the list I've just created there, New York, Paris, I can click on that, click on Delete, say OK, and it's gone. But otherwise, I just click on Add, type them in, separating each thing with a comma. And then when I click on OK, and OK again, back to the main screen. Now, there's one other thing to tell you about on autofill, and that's how it deals with numbers. Now, if I type in number 1, and I say, right, okay, I just want to have number 1 all the way down the, well, not all the way down the screen, I want to have 1 to 10. So if I click on that, autofill it down the screen, let go of the mouse, just get 1 all the way down the screen. Now, what happens here, excuse me, is because it's a number, it doesn't make any assumptions. Excel is very precious about its numbers. And so if you want to increase the number, you've got to kind of force it. And so what we do here is if I drag it down in the usual way, and you'll see in the highlights, it's just saying 1. Whilst I'm dragging it, if I hold down the Control key on my keyboard, now it'll increase instead. Then when I get as far as I want, if I leave the Control key held down, then let go of the mouse, then let go of Control, I get 1 to 10. And so it's the same with any numbers. If you just want to increase the number rather than copy it, you just hold down the Control key, let go of the mouse, let go of Control. And with text labels, it's exactly the opposite. So if I had Department 1 and I wanted it to say Department 1 all the way down the page, if I autofill it, it will increase because that's what autofill does. But if I wanted it to stay as Department 1, all I do is drag it and hold down the Control key, let go of the mouse, let go of Control, and then I get Department 1 all the way. And that is autofill. And it's probably one of the biggest time savers if you're not familiar with it.
Does that work with dates when you've got year end? So if you've got the month January 20 and then you wanted to drag that down, you've got February and you want 20, but it automatically increases it to February 21. Would that be working the Control?
Well, if you wanted to go 20 for January, 20 for February, 20th of March.
No, if you've got the actual year end as well, so you've got the 20th of January 2020, say, and then if you auto-filled down, I found that it would then go 21, the year 2021 on the next one, but actually you wanted to keep it year 2020.
No, it will stay. It will just increase.
Right.
So if I change that to a different date format, so if I go to format cells, and then put it into a date with a year on the end, that one I do.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't matter what I do to that. If I drag it down, it'll increase. So if I was to say 20th of January, then 20th of February, let's get rid of these ones. It'll give me the 20th, but it will keep on increasing until, you know, I get to 21, etc., etc.
Right.
What is it you'd like it to do? And there might be a way of doing it.
We've got a spreadsheet where we use monthly, 5th of the month for each payroll period, but it will be the same financial year. And when I've dragged down previously, obviously the year keeps increasing, and I don't want it to increase. I only want the month to increase. Right.
Have you got it in date format, or have you got it like January 20th, like that?
I believe it's 05.0420, so.
Yeah, that should change to a date. Or no, actually, no, it hasn't. Yeah, is it doing that when you drag it down?
Yes.
Right,
and
that's
I'd want to keep that in. I'd want to add on a month, but also keep the year the same.
Yeah, there's a really easy reason for that. That's because it's not a date. That is a number with dots in. Now, if you want your dates to look like that, that's absolutely fine. But the most important thing with a date is that you enter it in as a date. It doesn't matter how you want it to look, because you can change the look afterwards. The reason for that is because, for example, with these dates here, if somebody said, well, I want those to be 2-digit years, then I can just select those now because they're in date format. I can just go to format cells and say, right, I want a 2-digit year. And if I look down here, there's one, and click on that, say OK, and that's a 2-digit year. Whereas these dates aren't really dates, they're just numbers. And so if I want my date to look like that, what I can do is I can type a date in. And the way you type a date in is you do day / month / year. Then you hit return and it turns it into a date. Now, if I want that to look in this format, all I need to do is go to format cells and then go to date and look for a format that matches that criteria.
Matches that, yeah, okay.
If I say OK to that, that looks almost exactly the same, but the big giveaway is this is aligned to the right because it recognizes it as a number, and that's aligned to the left because it thinks it's text. So if I say 20th of the 1st, 20, and hit return, it still looks in that way, but when I drag it down, it increases it by the day. If I don't want it to go by the day, but I want it to go by the month, then all I do is drag it. I'm going to do this to get the format. I drag on to the next one. Then if I say 20th of the 2nd, hit return, I can now select those two, drag them down, and it will just go up by a month.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Because I'm using a preset spreadsheet from a former employee, so I'll look back at the format and no, that's great.
The other important thing to bear in mind is if you have dates like this, it's not just the way they look and the way that it formats it, it's also the fact you can't do calculations on it. So for example, with this date here, if I wanted to know how long somebody had been off sick, if they went off that day and they came back, let's say the 1st of the 12th, doesn't matter what the format is, behind the scenes it's just a big number. And so I can say equals big number minus slightly smaller big number, hit return, and I can see it's 42 days. And so that's another benefit of a date going in as a date. Whereas with this, if I say one minus the other, it will just give me an error message.
Yeah, okay.
So the answer is right there, formatting cells. Just right mouse click, format cells, go to date, and then choose the date format that you like the look of, and then type it in as number, oblique, number, oblique, number. Easy as that. Okay, good. That was good. Good question. Yay. Anyone else got any questions on this sort of stuff while we're there?
No, seems fine.
Good. Okay, I'll carry on with some other basic bits and bobs then. I'm just going to delete all this because I need the space. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do then is do the basic calculations. So I'm going to create a really basic spreadsheet. So I'm just going to have a few months across the top. So January to April. And I'm doing it using autofill to save me time. And then I'm going to have area 1 down to 3. And then click and drag. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out this section here with just with some random numbers. Now, whenever you're filling out a spreadsheet, obviously, I say obviously, but I imagine anyone who's familiar with Excel will know you type stuff in a cell and you hit return. That's the kind of rule of thumb. When you hit return, it'll either go to the right or it'll go down, or if your settings are set in such a way, it could even go up or left when the cursor moves. But you can change that. You can change that by going into File, Options, and Advanced, and then it's the first one there where you can change the direction it goes after you hit return. And this stays in your profile, so whatever spreadsheet you go to afterwards, it will stay the same. You can change it as much as you like. It just suits different spreadsheets in different ways. Now, if you hate the cursor moving when you hit return, you can even untick it there, and then it won't move, it will stay on the same cell. But if you decide you want to change it, all you do is you go to File, Options, Advanced, and then there. So you have down, right, up or left. However, what you can also do is you can press the Tab key. That'll always make it go to the right. You can press the arrow keys. So for example, if you're typing something and you want to go up, you can press the up arrow and your cursor will go up, or you can press the left arrow or the down arrow. All of these things are fine. If you're filling out some cells, so you've got a cell there and a cell here and a couple of cells down there, you can just select them. And you can do that by clicking on the first one you want, then holding down Control, click on the next one, keeping Control held down, click on the next one or row there, then let go of the mouse, let go of Control. And if you're filling out a form or something, that can save you a bit of time because you can select those cells. Now, if you just stick to the return key and the entry keys, now I can type some numbers in and it will just go into those cells. And you know that can save you seconds eventually, over a year or two maybe. However, what I want to do now is I want to fill in this section here. So I'm selecting it to save me having to use the cursor keys really, or having to use the mouse. I'm just going to type some numbers in, and it will stay in the area that I want. Just leave a space in there as well. Okay, and so now I'm just going to get some totals. Now I could do a long-winded basic calculation of saying equals this cell plus this cell plus this cell. That would work if I was to say equals B2 plus B3 plus B4. It would work, it'd give me the correct answer, but it's just tedious. Now in Excel, all you do to do a calculation is you just put an equal sign in front of it and then you treat it like a calculator. Obviously with cells, you have to do something different. In this case, you give them the cell reference. But this kind of calculation is a bit tedious and long-winded. So if ever you're doing something in Excel that's either tedious and long-winded with normal maths or impossible, then there's normally a function to do it. And the first function most people learn is the sum function. The sum function isn't for doing sums, it's for summing up the total of the cells in a selected range. They just call it sum because it's quicker to type. So you don't have to use sum every time you want to do something. If you want 10 plus 10, you say equals 10 plus 10, and you return, and you get 10 plus 10. But if you want to sum up a range of cells, say equals sum, open brackets, the first cell in the range, which in this case is B2, so B2 to get that one there, and the last cell in the range, which in this case, I'm going to say B5. Now B5 is a space. I had to put a colon in first as well, that's quite an important thing. I'm going to say B5, and although B5 is a space, the reason I've done that is because if I want to insert a few rows later and add area 4 and add area 5 and add various other areas, by having this range go right down to the formula, right down to the cell that contains the formula, it just means that it's more likely to save a bit of time later on. So it's just good practice. That's a bit of waffle there, but anyway. I'm going to close the brackets now and hit return. And hey, yeah, there's a sum, it's doing the calculation for me. And if these numbers were different, it'd be a different calculation. A lot of people will be familiar with the auto sum feature, which, if I can just get to the toolbar over there, which is over here on the right hand side. It's the little Greek sigma, little Greek letter sigma. And if I click on that, it guesses the calculation. Brilliant, saving loads of time. If I hit return, great. What's the point of learning how to use sum? I can just click on that and it does it all for me up. Doesn't always do it all for you. What auto sum does is it guesses. And so in this instance, it's guessed wrong. And if I want to choose the right stuff, that's not a problem. I can just click and drag to select the correct cells and then hit return. But having said that, I've typed it in this one and I've typed it in there correctly. So all I need to do is hover over the blob, drag it across to the right and let go. Because autofill works with formulas as well. So that's a sum function. And I can see here column B is summing up B2 to B5. And if I look at column D, it's D2 to D5 and of course E the same, etc., etc. So the sum function is just for summing up the total of the cells in the selected range. The rest of the basic 5, which are quite useful as well, are min, max, average, and count. What they do, min gives you the minimum value of the range, max gives you the maximum value of the range, average, brace yourselves for this, gives you the average value of the range, and count counts up to tell you how many numbers are in the range. Now, some of them are more obvious than others, but you know, min, max, and average, of course, you can see how you can analyze your figures. That's quite useful. Count, on the other hand, is handy to see if there's data missing. Count doesn't count letters. And so if somebody's accidentally typed some blurb on the spreadsheet, then you'll know that if this row has a different number of figures than the other row, you'll know something's missing. If you do want to count text, so if you've got a list of names or you've got a list of headings, names, and numbers, and you just want to know how many cells aren't empty, you can use the count function, but you use a different version. At the end of the word count, you put the letter A, so it becomes count A. But let me show you how these work. They work in the same way that some work. You start with an equal sign, and then you use the function name, which in this case is min. Open the brackets. You put the first cell in the range, which in this case is going to be B2 again, over there. So I'm going to type in B2. Then a colon, and then the last cell in the range. I'm going to go up to F2 because just in case I decide to add more months to it. And then that shows me the range that is selected. So I'm working across to see which was the worst figures for area 1. And then when I close the brackets and hit return, hey presto, the minimum one was 12. And if I go to another one and I put something lower than 12, then that's the minimum figure. Same thing with max. Equals max, open brackets, in this case again B2 to F2, close the brackets, hit return, and if any of those figures were higher than 45, then the maximum figure would be higher than 45. Average is really tedious because you have to type the whole word in. Just cheated there. B2 to F2, close the brackets, hit return. And the same thing with count. What you can do is you can cheat a little bit. Over here on the auto sum, if I click on the drop down to the right, then if I select count numbers, then that will guess, just like the auto sum thing does when you click on auto sum, it will guess the range that I want. And in this case, it's completely wrong, and I can manually select it. And if I hit return, that tells me how many of those cells have got numbers. And then if I want all of those repeated, I can just select all of them, autofill down, and I've got those figures for all areas. So those are the basic 5 functions. You've got sum, min, max, average, and count. And like I say, with the count function here, if I wanted to count just the numbers, I'd say equals count over bracket let's say J1 to J10. Close the brackets, hit return. There's 3 numbers. But if I wanted to include text as well, if I put an A at the end of it and then hit return, that will include the title at the top. So that is the basic. Let me just move this out of the way. The basic 5 formulas, functions, even. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah, it's fine, thanks.
Everyone nodded off yet? Yeah, nervous laughter rather than I'm saying no.
Yeah.
Now, we can do some more stuff if you like, or if anyone's got any requests, we can do those now. I did say we'd finish by past, but whilst I was doing that, a massive distraction of a thing coming up saying that this meeting can go on for longer.
I've got a question, if that's all right. Yep. I've got a direct debit spreadsheet and everything's out of order, so I want to put it into alphabetical order, but then I've got other data in the columns going along with writing as well, not just numbers. I mean, because if I put them in alphabetical order, everything's going to go out of order, if you like.
Yeah, it's really important to be cautious when you do that, but it's really easy as well. It should be absolutely fine. So if I just do some examples here. So we'll have invoice numbers. Let's take those. This isn't going to be very random, but never mind, this will do.
Yeah.
I suddenly had a flashback to a time when I put dates that were out of sync with invoice numbers, and there was an auditor in the room who just couldn't bear to see it on the screen.
Yes.
Just freaked out. But okay, I'm going to put that in this sheet instead. So, in theory, if I wanted to sort that and it was just a set of data like this, all I'd do is click in the column that I want to sort. So let's say we'll do it by dates descending.
Right.
The important thing is to choose just one cell, not the column, because if I choose that column, bad things will happen. But if I choose one cell and now say right click, sort, and then just say newest to oldest, then they'll all sort. I didn't use it after you saying about alphabetical order. I didn't use. I didn't actually put anything in there that could show that. So let's put some names in. We'll have Red, Jill. Right. And equally, if I want to sort this in alphabetical order, again, I just click on one cell, right mouse click, sort, and then A to Z. And what it will do is it will sort all of it in one go.
Right.
If you've got a gap between things, so if I put a gap there, and I was to say, okay, let's sort by invoice number, this is where things might get a little bit complicated. So if I do that, use this as one data set and just sort this. And so you can see there 56 Anna. If I undo that, it's still there. So in that situation, what you have to do is select all of the data and then right mouse click on the it's easy said and done. Right mouse click and go sort. Let's go largest to smallest, and then it will do the whole data set.
Right.
Yeah, just double checking because the top figure is the same, but I typed that in twice. So you can do more complicated sorts where you can actually go into the sort option on the toolbar, but this is normally enough for pretty much everything. The trick is,
what did you do again? What was that? You right clicked.
So you just select the column that you're in, select one cell, right mouse click, go to sort, and then choose which one you want.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you want the newest at the top, we'll do that. If there's no gap, it's really easy. If there is a gap, it will think these are two separate data sets. And so if you're doing that, then you need to select all the data and then right mouse click and sort it afterwards. Having said that, I need to actually be in that cell. I mean, if you've got gaps, the best way to do it is probably just to select by the column headings and go up to sort on the menu and then go to custom sort. And then from there,
then it'll put them into alphabetical order with the data on the same line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now if I select E, for example, and say I want that A to Z, where we've got Anna 56, invoice number 103, when I click OK, he'll be at the top, Anna 56. I shouldn't have selected the heading at the same time for doing it that way, but you get the general gist. So I'll put this protection program now, the sun's moved. Okay, good. We're happy with that one?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, has anyone got any other questions?
No.
Is that a no? Yeah?
No, that was a no.
No. Okay. Does anyone want me to carry on? I could do another 10 minutes if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Please.
If you can bear it. Yeah. Well, just as calculations, being as you haven't done a huge amount. So let's get a nice space to work in. I'm just going to take this area here and use merge and center to turn it into a big old cell. So this is my whiteboard that I normally stand in front of. So in Excel, actually, before I do that, I'm going to make it look a bit more like a whiteboard. So in Excel, we use all the usual mathematical symbols: plus for adding stuff up, minus for subtracting, oblique for dividing, asterisk for multiplying, the little thing on the 6 key for doing to the power of. Anyone ever used to the power of?
No.
You know, when you're trying to work out like the cubed value of something, you would say like so and so to the power of 3. No, none of you uses that. Anyway, so if you want to work out how much concrete you're using for a square, or concrete, or cube of it. We also use things like the percent symbol, less than or greater than, brackets, and the dollar sign. These are all really important things in doing calculations in Excel. So important that I'm going to make them look really big in the background. So if, for example, I wanted to do a calculation. So if I was to put in 10 plus 10 times 10, when I hit return, what will it display?
The answer.
You haven't got equals.
It'll come up an error.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it'll display 10 plus 10 times 10 because I haven't got an equal sign. So if I put an equal sign in front of it, when I hit return, what will it display?
Still an error.
It's a perfectly reasonable calculation.
There's no brackets.
It will display the answer, which is 110. Now, for anyone that's thinking, there's a reason for that. It's a perfectly reasonable reason, because that is the answer to 10 plus 10 times 10. Now we look at that and we say 10 plus 10, 20 times 10, 200. Why isn't it saying 200? Now, this isn't anything to do with spreadsheets, but it's really important to be aware of it when you're working on formulas. This is maths, and you remember this from school, probably. There's a wonderful thing called, I have to write this in the little box over here, called BODMAS. Now, BODMAS is the order in which mathematicians, mad scientists, and computers calculate formula. And so here, for example, we might say 10 plus 10 is 20, times 10 is 200, but BODMAS is the order in which it should be calculated. So brackets, well, to the power of, really, this is what it means. They kind of make it O's to make it sound right. I mean, I think in school these days they call it BIDMAS and they call it indices, but it's still to the power of. But anyway, it's the other stuff: bracket, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So when it looks at that, rather than saying 10 plus 10 times 10, it says either in brackets, no; division, no; multiplication, yep, 10 times 10 is 100; addition, yeah, we've got plus 10 in there, 110; subtraction, no. So that's how you get 110, which is, you know, the right answer. It's really important to be aware of how brackets work, though, if you're doing a complex formula, because you can get a number that looks like it's almost right, but it could just be wrong, just because the brackets are in the wrong place. So if I was expecting 200, what I'd do is put brackets around the 10 plus 10, and then that would give me 10 plus 10 times 10. Because first, I look for the brackets. Are there any brackets? Yep, goes inside there, starts again, brackets, no. To the power of, no. Division, no. Multiplication, no. Addition, yep, 10 plus 10 is 20. Subtraction, no. It takes the 20, comes outside of the brackets, and carries on from where it started. And so it says, any to the power of, no. Division, no. Multiplication, yep, 20 times 10, 200. Any addition, no. Any subtraction, no. And so when I hit return, hurrah, I've got 200. So that's the importance of brackets in calculations, and in this case, using BODMAS to get the right answer. However, what I'm going to do now is just run through percentages. Everyone familiar with how to get percentages in Excel?
Yeah.
I'll do it anyway. There's loads of ways you can do percentages. In fact, I'm going to get another whiteboard over here just to show it. Right. Let's think. So if I just put in comedy expression now, I have to explain this to people what it means. But anyway, so if I wanted to do a percentage of that total profit figure for these areas and display it in there, I could do it a variety of ways, because essentially all I want to do is get 5% of the total figure. So we're looking for 5%. So what I could do, actually I don't need to type it in, I know what I'm looking for. I could say, right, well, let's divide it by 100 and times it by 5. That gives me 5%. So if I said equals B6, B6 divided by 100 times 5, that would give me 5%. That would work fine. Bit long-winded. Doesn't need brackets because you've got division and multiplication, and it's BODMAS, so it's in the right order. Alternatively, I could say equals B6. And I could kind of condense this bit to speed it up. I could say, well, rather than divide by 100 and times 5, why don't I work out what the figure I'm working with is and just multiply it by that instead. So I could just say multiply by 0.05, you know, 5 divided by 100. That would work as well. But of course, the way that is really helpful to know about is how to do it with the percent symbol. Now, if I say equals B6 multiplied by 5%, that would give me 5%. So there's 3 different ways of doing it. And if I prove the fact that they do all work, so B6 divided by 100 gives me 1%, times 5 gives me 5%. B6 multiplied by 0.05 would give me 5%. But if I just say equals B6 times 5% and then hit return, I get 5%. So the last one isn't necessary. You don't need to use it, but you need to know how it works because everybody uses it. So it kind of makes sense to use it. So there's lots of different ways of working out percentages, but that's how the percent symbol works. You can't say show 10% of A1. It doesn't work like that. You have to say A1 times 10%. You can't add 50% to Z99. You have to say Z99 times 150%. Or if you want to take 10% off, you could say A1 times 90%, or you could say A1 times 10%. The amount of figure you want to take off of A1. So you say A1 minus brackets, A1 minus 10%, so times 10%. So there's all sorts of things you do, but basically to work out a percentage, you have to use percent. You have to use multiply, and then it'll give you the percentage of that cell. Otherwise, it just goes horribly wrong. Basically, when you put a percent symbol next to a number, it just moves decimal place by 2 spaces. That's all it's doing. So saying multiply by 5% is exactly the same as saying multiply by 0.05. And it's the same with the formatting, because if you type 100, type 1 in a cell and you change the format to display it as a percentage, it will display 100% because 1 is 100%, whereas 0.5 is 50%. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that now. Autofill that across. And there's percentages. And the only other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is absolute referencing, which I'll show you quickly in case you're not familiar with it. And then if anyone wants me to explain it properly, I will. So if I was to put a percentage in a cell down here, like 5%, for example, hit return, and then get rid of these calculations and change my calculation here. So rather than saying B6 multiplied by 5%, if I said B6 multiplied by A10, then when I hit return, it gives me exactly the same answer. Yeah? Of course it will, yeah. But then I've got the freedom to sort of go, oh, what if I tinker with that and put a 7 there, or maybe a 9 there, or more realistically, a 1 there. That way I've got a nice user-friendly sort of way of working with it. However, if I autofill it across, then shock horror, it all goes horribly wrong. And that's because this cell is happily looking at the blue one and multiplying it by the red one. And the next cell is doing the same thing, blue one multiplied by the red one, but it's adjusted it correctly as it's supposed to, because these are relative references. Absolute referencing, it sounds really complicated, but it's basically locking a cell. But what I need to do here is I need to lock part of that calculation. And it's the A10, the red bit, that I need to lock. So to turn it into an absolute reference, I just put $1 before the A and $1 before the 10, and it will lock the A and lock the 10. Or I can just click on the A10 bit in the formula, press the F4 key, and hit return. And now this looks exactly the same and works exactly the same. But if I autofill it across, it now works on all the other cells, because it still says blue bit multiplied by red bit, but the red bit's fixed. And then if I start tinkering with the percentages, I can see they all work like so. And that's absolute referencing. It's really handy, because if ever you've got a fixed point and you need to copy a formula down for loads of rows, it can just save you a whole load of time. Now that's about 4 hours of training normally on the but it's a lot quicker exercises. So if anybody's got any questions, now's an excellent time to ask. Otherwise, I'll just let you escape.
So do they, a lot of the toolbar across the top, obviously that's the quicker way of doing things, is it?
Yeah, in some cases. I mean, for example, the auto sum thing is quite handy for, say, when you're typing in the formula names for the basic formulas. But it's good to not depend on that, because when you get to the stage of doing complex formulas, you can't put them inside other formulas.
Right.
So it's good to know how to do it manually. For example, if you had a list of products and you wanted to say, if it's a trade customer, give them this price. If it's a retail customer, give them these, these totals. You'd need an if function, and you couldn't put a sum and function in an if function without typing it manually. But depending on the ribbon at the top, it just depends what you want to do, what kind of formatting you want to do. But as far as a formula bar is concerned, that's just a great way of editing things. So if I want to edit something, I can click up there and edit it, which is handy. But if I were to create my formulas by using the formula function, that just stabilizes on the bike. It doesn't help anybody. Well, it does. If you know how to use a function, there's no point using it. If you don't know how to use it, it's probably more confusing than helpful. So I don't tend to recommend trying to learn it from that bit.
No.
That's personal preference.
Yeah.
So, anything else anyone would like to see other than me stop talking?
Just one thing, Glenn, that wrap text at the top, I've seen people use that and I've not been concentrating on it. What is that as such? Probably.
If we, well, this is a good example of it because I wanted to put those on separate rows, well, separate lines within that cell.
Yeah.
If I make a cell nice and big, let's grab this here, drag that down. So that's a deep cell now.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got loads of room. I can put in sales figures, Fred, John, Jill, and Mary. And so if I type in that box and start typing in, sales, Fred, John, Jill, Mary, and then hit return. It's like, oh, that's not what I wanted. Now, if I click on wrap text, then that's. I don't tend to use that very often in that way. But what is really easy is if you're typing something, as I was here, for example, and I wanted to go on multiple rows, and this is really just for headings. Then if you type in something into a cell, you can use the Alt key. If you hold down the Alt key and press return, it gives you a new line in that cell. And then when you hit return, it looks like that, which is really good, or not. But yeah, so you can do it either way. You can either press it up there first of all to format that cell, or you can just type things in, press Alt and return, and it'll go like so. And then when you hit return, it's like that.
Ooh. Good.
Any other questions?
There's probably loads of them, but.
Good.
Oh dear.
Okay, well, if you've got any requests, you could either email them through, we can do another one, or you could ask now. But I think I'll probably go through some word bits tomorrow, if any of you would like to attend the word session. And again, if you've got any requests for that, or if there's anything else you'd like to see, if you'd like to know, I don't know, things about how to set a database up in Access, I could try to do that in half an hour. That'd be quite an interesting bit of training. But any requests at all, let me know, and we'll endeavour to do it. But we send out some. Sorry.
Can any of these recordings be accessed after, at a later stage? So if like you're not working every day and you want to just sort of flip back and see if there's any sort of hints and tips that you've missed, or you just want to go over them in your own time.
We are planning to put this on YouTube, I believe, which would be incredibly embarrassing for me. However, that's the general idea. But so that, if we do that, I'm not do it. It has to be someone else because it would just pain me. However, if we do that, then we'll email out the address, and then you can get to watch it all over again.
Okay.
But yeah, if there's anything, like I say, if there's anything else you'd like to see, we can do Word tomorrow, or we could do Word Friday or something, or we can do more detailed version of Excel. But what I'll do is I'll see what people have said, and then Jackie will send out another email, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll see you on another one soon.
Yeah, okay, thanks then.
Thank you. Bye then. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.